Me, a resident of your city. Part of our agreement with the cable company allows us to use the franchise fees to create
Me, your local community cable channel. We provide direct communication from your city to you, the resident, in the form of city.
Call the Savage City Council meeting to order. Roll call.
Mayor Kelly,
Here.
Council members Bergstrom,
Here virtually.
Coughlin,
Here.
Frakes, Johnson.
Here.
And we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under state,
with liberty and justice for all.
just for all.
Do we need to have Councilmember Bergstrom say why she's
On the record.
okay? Councilmember Bergstrom, can I have you on the record just say why you're attending virtually?
Yes, I am at a residency for my teaching licensure program, so that's why I'm virtual right now.
Next, we're going to have a moment of silence. I would please join me in a moment of silence to recognize the tragic loss of Minnesota House Speaker Emeritus Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark Hortman, as well as the shooting victims, State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette Hoffman. Thank you. Violence has no place in our society. We uphold the family and friends of Hortmans and the Hoffmans in our thoughts and prayers. May we as a city and as a state come together to find peace and unity. Thank you. We will move on to public comments. The mayor and the city council believe public comments are a necessary component to elected governance. With this principle in mind, we welcome individuals to come to the podium to inform us of an issue or provide feedback or concerns about matters in Savage. Please come to the podium and provide your name and address. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Deb Doyle, and I live at 13210 Glendale Road. Now that we no longer have a local paper, I would like to know how this city communicates changes that are happening in the community that will impact them. 2 weeks ago, I woke up to heavy equipment tearing up the bike path and the entrance to my driveway. The contractor told me then, I'm like, what's going on? And he explained it to me. And then they're like, we're going to replace the bike path. Okay. And then nothing more. And then about 10 days later, they show up to blacktop it. blocking us in. So, how do you communicate to community members these changes? Because I knew nothing about it. Do you send a letter? I don't know. The bike path. When you redid the road, it raised the hill in front of our house quite a bit. So the grade on it is quite steep. Now the bike path is up about 3 inches. I can no longer mow that hill. It's technically city property. I have graciously mowed it since 1993. You've got to do something because either myself or my husband can't do it anymore, is going to get killed. We can no longer use the riding lawnmower on it because it's too steep. My third big thing is, I know that the speed limit's been lowered to 35. It hasn't made a doggone bit of difference. I think people have taken that as they can speed up faster. With all the construction that's going on, we have so much heavy equipment going up and down our road every day. They are not going 35, I can promise you that. Somebody's going to get killed. Not only that, we're right on the corner of 132nd. I almost got run over twice last week from people going up and down that road very fast. There's a lot of children on bikes. I don't know. I'm all about safety, and right now, I do not feel safe even crossing a street in Savage because it's not safe. And my husband was trying to cross at the crosswalk, and he almost got run over. So anyway, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Administrator Larson, did you have anything that you wanted to say?
Yeah, Mayor, council members, I don't have specifics on the project that Mrs. Doyle was talking about, but I will have staff follow up with her, get her contact information, and we'll look into it, and we'll explain how we communicate these things. I'm not sure if this was a city project. It might have been like a Nuvera project or a cable company project, which they will work in our right-of-ways quite a bit, and this is their busy season, so we try to keep on them to communicate with residents, sometimes a challenge, but we'll have our staff follow up with Mrs. Doyle.
You have to come, I'm sorry, you have to come to the mic, just because people at home and our council member online can't hear you.
Sang did send Igor over to speak to me about the hill. So, and we spoke when the road was originally done. So it hasn't fallen on deaf ears, but I thought I should come here and express my concerns in person, so.
Absolutely.
And thank you.
And just so you know, our chief of police is also here, so he also heard your comments about speeding, and
Yeah, thank you.
I think he'll be following up, so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to make a public comment?
Hello, Stephen Coons, 6519 Brook Lane. My comments today are in regards to a public records request that I did. Essentially, I'm just going to read this that I wrote here. As a request for public records, a response for my name, evidence was obtained that a City of Savage employee, I'll omit that email address right now, has multiple private personal emails and private business-related emails of mine from the email address on the City of Savage servers. This is not official City of Savage business-related task as per policy 212.1, which I was provided by. How will my private emails be removed from your email server? Please investigate this disappointing, actionable breach of trust as soon as possible, and please contact me with any questions. That's all I have. Thank you. I've submitted my complaint online also.
Okay. Do you know if somebody has seen the complaint online, or if?
Yep, Chief
Yep.
has it.
Okay. Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience who wants to be heard? With that, I will move on to the additions, modifications, and approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or modifications?
None from staff, Mayor.
All right, I will entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Coughlin, seconded by Johnson. All in favor say aye. Oh, sorry, we have to do a roll call vote. Roll call.
Roll call. Mayor Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Bergstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Coughlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Crakes. Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carries. Proclamations. We are commemorating Juneteenth, and I will read that proclamation. I don't believe there is anybody here to receive that proclamation, so I'll just read it from the dais. Juneteenth. Whereas on January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation declaring slaves in Confederate territory free, paving the way for the abolishing of slavery in the United States of America. And whereas word about the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation did not reach all slaves in the southern states until June 19, 1865, and whereas in 1866, the first celebration of Jubilee Day was celebrated on June 19th and is recognized as a celebration of freedom in the Black community. And whereas recognizing Juneteenth is an opportunity for education, recognition, action, and celebration of freedom in our community. And whereas the City of Savage is committed to being a leader in racial equality and inclusion, to create a community where all residents feel welcome, safe, and connected. And whereas Juneteenth is an important opportunity to honor the principles of freedom in the USA and celebrate the achievements and contributions the Black community has made and continues to make in our region and the City of Savage. Now, therefore, I, Christine L. Kelly, Mayor of the City of Savage, hereby proclaim June 19th, 2025 as Juneteenth in the City of Savage, and hope that this recognition encourages our residents to reflect, learn, understand, participate, and celebrate in community-based events to celebrate Juneteenth and its meaning in our region. And with that, I'm going to add, we also have a special Juneteenth celebration that we are holding at our Environmental Learning Center right next to Community Park this Thursday, June 19th from 6 to 8 p.m. And you are all welcome to attend. Moving on, we have no presentations this evening. The minutes, we're going to do the minutes a little differently today. I'm going to ask for modifications, and then if there's no modifications, we'll do one roll call vote for all three of them. But I'll start with the minutes for the City Council meeting for June 2, 2025. Are there any additions, modifications, corrections? Seeing none, I will move on to the minutes for the special City Council meeting from June 9, 2025. Seeing none, I will move on to the minutes of the City Council work session from June 9, 2025. With no indication that there are any modifications or changes, I will entertain a motion to approve all three sets of minutes. Roll call vote.
We need the motion first.
Oh, sorry.
Motion to approve all three sightings.
Second.
Oh, third.
Motion by Johnson, seconded by Bergstrom. Roll call vote.
Mayor Kelly.
Aye.
Council members Bergstrom.
Aye.
Coughlin.
Aye.
Crakes. Johnson.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Moving on to public hearings. We have two this evening. The first is to conduct a public hearing to consider adopting a resolution to approve an application for a cable television franchise from Comcast to provide cable services within the City of Savage. Emily.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. So the City of Savage currently operates under two existing cable franchise agreements with Mediacom Minnesota LLC and Nuvera Communications Incorporated. In April of 2025, representatives from Comcast approached the City of Savage inquiring about operating a cable system in Savage. Following standard procurement procedures, the city requested or released a request for proposal with an official application form on May 8th of 2025, and the city received one application from Comcast on May 21st, 2025. The purpose of tonight's public hearing is to receive public comment regarding an application from Comcast, Arkansas, Florida, Louisiana, Minnesota, Mississippi, Tennessee, LLC, requesting a cable franchise to operate a cable system in the city of Savage. At this time, I would like to invite the representative from Comcast who is here tonight to share information about their service offerings, construction timeframe, and answer any questions. Come on up, Megan.
Thank you for being here.
Okay, so you can just use that, or I think you can do that. Okay, thank you.
Hello, thank you. Madam Mayor and City Council, thank you for having me here today. My name is Megan Shea, and I work for Comcast. I live down the road in Dakota County in Apple Valley, and I office right here in St. Paul. So you have a local government affairs representative. And let me just start by saying it's been quite a weekend, and I've worked in government affairs for a long time. So I want to thank each and every one of you for your service. It does not go unnoticed. I have copies if you would like. I know it's on screen as well, but you can have these. It will include my contact information at the end, so if you have any other questions following the presentation, you can let me know. So Comcast coming to Savage, we are very excited about this prospect. You may know Comcast from other areas. We are currently serving in Scott County. We do also serve a great deal of the Twin Cities metro area, and we are looking to expand. We deliver world-class broadband, mobile, video, and entertainment across a variety of platforms, including a cable platform. Comcast has built and handled all of this within the Twin Cities for over 60 years. We've invested $80 billion over the past 10 years across our network. And we have a 99.9% reliability with a network that's monitored 24/7. We're even incorporating AI now, so we know within minutes if a cable or a fiber is cut, so that we can prevent a lot of damage before it's, or complications before they are started, but also respond as soon as they are. So our downtime is very limited. They can resolve almost 60% of our network outages before they even experienced by the customer. So this is some of the great information that you can see here about Comcast, but I don't want to take too much of your time, so I just want to mention a few highlights. We have 15 retail stores. It's a great way to know and learn about our products and our services, everything from mobile to broadband to some of our entertainment pieces. You can see here TV, internet, home security, voice. We do voice as well. Our stores are located in 15 retail locations, but we will be opening in Burnsville later this year. So you'll see us right nearby, and that'll be really helpful. It'll be up and open before we're even done here in Savage. So that'll be a great experience for you. All right, I do want to spend a little bit more time on this slide because I think it is one of those that you might hear the most about, construction. We've been constructing in local right-of-ways for dozens of years. We have a lot of experience, but we also want to highlight that we are really focused on the communication piece. We know that is essential to any community. That includes doing some pre-meetings with some of your staff on what permitting can look like, what that communication with your staff will look like, but also with the residents. So things that we have include a dedicated website that will talk about how to communicate with us, what to look for, what to expect during construction. That'll include a way to get a hold of our construction team directly, but also our contractor directly, because we know that we'll have both working in the right-of-way. You will also have a local phone number and email address. So you're not talking about somebody in a call center. I know it's easy to pick up, and I love our call center, but sometimes you need that local voice and that local knowledge, especially when you're under construction. And then for each one of you and your staff, you'll have my name directly, and I work closely with a lot of communities in which we are expanding. We expect and plan for everything to always go smoothly, but we know that there are always some things that crop up or some unexpected challenges, and we want to get on those right away at any time for you. Our truck contractors and our trucks should all be labeled with Comcast, so you know who's working in your right-of-way at any time, and they should also be able to tell you who they're working for and what they're doing there. So They will receive, communities will receive door tags with all the same information, a way to get a hold of our contractor during that time. So you'll see a door tag, we've got our website, you've got my information, you've got a local phone number. We want to make communication key at any time. So before construction even begins, we will work, as we will start next week, talking about permitting and the right-of-way and what we can do to make that run smoothly for everyone. Also, on top of the door tags and the trucks, you will see our folks in vests and badges to identify themselves at any time. Just a little bit about Comcast in Scott County. We've got some amazing partnerships. We really strive to not only be a entertainment and cable and broadband provider, but also a community partner. And that includes some of our products like Internet Essentials. Internet Essentials is a product for broadband speeds to low-income qualifying families. It's at $14.95. We've been doing it for over 10 years now, I think since 2011 it says there, and we have currently 1,200 families within Scott County that take advantage of this program. We love to talk about it. We love to find the people who need it. We know that there's a digital divide that needs to be addressed, and we want to be a partner in that. We also love to support the community, so you will see that we have, working with the Savage Chamber of Commerce, and have already reached out to the Parks and Rec as well to see where we can be in the community. So I kept it short, sweet. I know you guys have a lot going on. I'm always available for any questions you might have or how things may proceed as we look forward to constructing. It looks like the construction timeframe would probably be in 2026, given everything that needs to happen. But we will always be working closely with staff, and we appreciate the opportunity to provide cable in the city of Savage. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation. I love the comments about the economic digital divide and that you're doing something to try and make a difference. So thank you. All right, are there any questions from council? Bob?
So you're going to go up and down every street in Savage and drop a new line everywhere? We have 100 and some miles of, how many miles do we have of city streets? I didn't know if you piggybacked on the existing infrastructure backbone or if this is literally all brand new.
It would be all brand new. It would be extending our plant. It would be a fiber build, and it would be to all 11,000, let me double check my note, 11,900 some passings locations throughout Savage. So there, when we build out a city, we plan to build out everyone in that city.
And so do you just go to a junction on each street, or are you actually running a line to every single house?
So with fiber, we will run a line so that anyone would be like what we call drop serviceable. That means if they call us up and they want service, we can extend that to their house, if that makes sense. So as we go through, everyone will have the opportunity to have that service. If they don't want a drop in there to their home, they don't have to have one.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I will open the public hearing. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. And the action tonight is to adopt a resolution that approves a cable franchise to Comcast and directs staff to conduct franchise negotiations with Comcast. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, seconded by Coughlin. Roll call vote.
Mayor Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmembers Bergstrom?
Aye.
Coughlin? Aye. Craigs? Johnson?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you again for being here. All right, we have a second public hearing this evening. I'm getting there. Oops. Never mind. Our second public hearing, to conduct a public hearing to consider adopting a resolution approving a 5-year street reconstruction plan and issuing general obligation street reconstruction bonds in 2025. Matt.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as stated, tonight's public hearing is to Adopt a 5-year street reconstruction plan and authorize staff to issue general obligation street reconstruction bonds in 2025. This is a component of a action item later on our agenda where we're going to sell our 2025A or set sail for our 2025A series bonds. This is one of 3 components to our bond or our debt structure this year because of the South Park Drive project not having many driveways that abut onto South Park. There isn't the threshold to meet the 429 statute limitation of 20% of special assessment revenue compared to the total project cost has not been met. So this is just another authority. This falls under chapter 475 rather than 429. So it's really a formality. Do not be shocked by the street reconstruction plan that shows no projects in 26 and forward. That is something that Seng and I are going to go through our future year projects and identify which ones do we expect to need street reconstruction bonds in the future. We can adopt this and change it in the future at any point. So we are not bound to this solely for the next 5 years.
All right. Any questions, concerns?
You answered my question.
Bob, did you have any questions?
No, it's pretty straightforward.
Megan? Okay.
No, I'm good.
I just wanted to comment in here, talking about the total estimated project cost of $4,155,039. But of that, we're getting municipal state aid money of $3,216,344. $344.
That is correct.
Where are we at with our municipal state aid fund?
We're still in a pretty healthy state. This is a pretty large advancement that we had from our state aid, but we got that authorized from the state office.
Okay.
Mayor, council members, Sang, can you speak to where we're at with our state aid? Are we on the positive side or are we in the hole? Because I know we can do an advancement.
Yep. Mayor, members of council, if council recall, we did do an advancement for this particular project. So the city is allocated approximately $1.5 million per year from the state aid fund. So it goes into a fund. It's held there until we use it. So with this year, I think council advanced, I have to look at the numbers again, at $1.8 million, I believe, to make up for that. Because with the allocation in 2025, we were at 1.4 or 1.5. We advanced the additional amount. And so with next year's allocation, we should be close to being even again, or a little bit under that. So it might take a couple years to get back to that point. But generally, that's kind of what we've been doing is we've been completing these types of projects to kind of utilize that state aid fund, advance a little bit, and then catch up about a year or two. And we're back in the kind of like a cycle in terms of getting those state aid routes completed and improved. So.
That was just what I was going to say, is I think staff has done a great job of looking at the projects and preparing and setting those roads that we can use the municipal state aid funds for and those we can't, and offsetting those and structuring that so we can dip into that fund and use it when we can and then build it back up again as we need to. So with that said, I will open the public hearing. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. And we need to consider adopting a resolution approving the 5-year street reconstruction plan and issuing general obligation street reconstruction bonds. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Coughlin, seconded by Johnson. Roll call vote.
Mayor Kelly?
Aye.
Council members Bergstrom,
Aye.
Coughlin,
Aye.
Crakes, Johnson.
Motion approved. All right, we will move on to the consent agenda. These are routine items of business that are collectively presented for approval through a single motion. A council member may request that an item be pulled from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. Under personnel, adopt a resolution authorizing personnel actions for the city of Savage. Under planning, adopt a resolution approving an amendment to the 2040 Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map from low-density residential to park on 15.01 acres, subject to Metropolitan Council approval, and adopt an ordinance approving the amendment to the official zoning map from planned residential district to preservation open space on 7.51 acres related to Community Park City Project 25-27. 2, adopt a resolution approving an amendment to the 2040 Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map from low-density residential to park, subject to Metropolitan Council approval, and adopt an ordinance approving an amendment to the official zoning map from planned residential district to preservation open space for the property located at 15625 Hampshire Avenue, City Project 2527. Under Police and Fire, adopt a resolution approving 1 forfeited vehicle and 3 police department vehicles to be declared surplus equipment and disposed of in a manner that complies with state law. Under Finance, adopt a resolution to approve claims listing. Under General, adopt a resolution approving a temporary on-sale liquor license for Warrior Dog Rescue for their Warriors and Wags fundraiser on July 19, 2025, located at 12585 Rhode Island Avenue. 2, adopt a resolution approving a temporary on-sale liquor license for Pregnancy Choices fundraiser on September 30, 2025, to be held at St. John the Baptist Catholic Church located at 4625 125th Street. And 3, adopt a resolution declaring city council members as employees for purposes of data collection and dissemination under Minnesota Chapter 13 data practices. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, seconded by Bergstrom. Roll call vote.
Mayor Kelly.
Aye.
Council members Bergstrom,
Aye.
Coughlin. Frakes. Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to general business. Consider adopting a resolution authorizing the competitive negotiated sale of $3,585,000 in general obligation bonds, Series 2025A. Matt?
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So as we just held this public hearing for the street reconstruction component of this bond series, I have tonight with me Elizabeth Bergman from Baker Tilly, who's going to walk us through this year's sale.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Administrator. Pleased to be with you all tonight. Elizabeth Bergman from Baker Tilly Municipal Advisor. We've got a pretty straightforward presentation here. I was going to say pretty straightforward ask, but I guess whenever we're asking you to issue bonds, it's not straightforward. But what we're asking you to do today is approve a resolution doing 4 things. First of all, to enable Baker Tilly to take bids for you, write terms of proposal, and put together an official statement, all to sell the bonds on July 21st, and that's at 10 a.m. So that's the ask, and then I'm going to give you a little details on what's happening. This slide here shows you the sources and the uses of the bonds. So at the very bottom there, you can see where it says use of funds, and it says deposit to project construction fund. So that shows you how much will be generated for each of the projects, as well as above the source, the par amount of the bonds. And I'll go through sort of in a little bit of detail in each of these. But just gives you an overview of what it is that you're borrowing for. And as you can see, with regard to the street reconstruction bonds, there's a significant portion that's done through municipal state aid, as you were just discussing, and also your utility funds. So this is the street improvement. It's for various street improvements here. And it is, let me get to my notes here, will be funded both through a levy as well as assessments. And I should also say that while there are 3 different pieces to the borrowing, they are all rolled up into one. So as an investor, you'll just be buying bonds that include all these 3 pieces. But for your accounting, for your following through, they'll be broken out. So like I say, it paid for by assessments and property tax levy. The levy is estimated to be under $140,000 annually for these. And you'll see something that I think is pretty important. There's a little star after debt service, and that's estimated at this moment. Obviously, the market may change in between now and when we sell the bonds. And also, we do our best at projecting the current market conditions, but we will ultimately see how investors price the bonds. The next one is street reconstruction bonds. Same thing. There's a series of assessments there as well as a levy required, and this is for that South Park Drive that you all were just speaking about. Annual levy there is under $90,000 a year. And then finally, there's some equipment certificates. Those are short, a 5-year series. Oddly enough, financing equipment. Call me crazy, but that's what it is, about $230,000 a year on the levy on those. I referenced that the market can change, as I'm sure you're all aware, and here's a chart of the municipal market for over the last 5 years. I think the interesting part here is just that very tail at the far right. You can see that we have been trending up over the last couple of years, and nobody should be terribly surprised by that. But you do see that there's an extreme spike right there at the end, and that's in April when the market was a little bit unstable, as we all remember. But you can see the market went up quite a bit and then dropped down, and we've been essentially stable since then. So while we had some market disruption in April, we've really had a pretty healthy and strong market. We've had a lot of interest on bonds we've sold recently. Here, this slide just talks about the timing. Obviously, tonight, we're asking you to authorize the bond sale. Then July 1st, we will be speaking with Standard & Poor's for a credit rating. We'll publish the official statement July 11th, and that will be with the credit rating, presumably that AAA credit rating. And then on the July 21st, take competitive bids and receive proceeds on August 14th. Like I say, relatively straightforward process, but asking you to borrow money, not so straightforward. So happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Does anybody have any questions? Bob?
Just to clarify, this will authorize you to do the sale without any future coming back for one last approval.
That's correct. Once we sell the bonds, so we'll go out into the market and we'll put the offering out there and we'll take bids from underwriters, and then we will come back to you and inform you of what the bids were, how many bids we got, what the rates were, and we will recommend that you award to the lowest bidder.
So if something crazy happens in the market, we could actually decline at the last minute?
Well, that's a great question, since I opened the door to that, didn't I, talking about April. We had a couple bond sales during that period, and we had some pretty intense conversations with a number of cities across Minnesota. So if we see an unusual market heading into the sale, we watch the market, and we will work with Matt to have some updates about what we think interest rates are going to be over the days. If we see an unusual environment, we will talk to staff, talk about what your objectives are, what your needs are, what we think the risks are, and make some decisions. We could decide to postpone the sale, in which case we will probably come to you on the day we're supposed to sell bonds. I say probably because this is all subject to exactly what kind of craziness is there, but I would expect the outcome would be we'd come to you that night and say, hey, we didn't sell the bonds because we thought the market was too volatile, and our plan is to do X, Y, and Z. And then honestly, depending on who your bond counsel is, some bond counsels think you need to approve it again and some don't. And I'm not sure which your bond counsel does. So we might ask you for another permission if things went wildly different than expected. But as long as everything is tracking according to the plans that we've laid out, you don't need to take any action until you award the bonds after we see what the actual interest rates are and can see what the overall market landscape was that day.
Thank you.
We're going to cross our fingers for no more wild volatility like that. It was a wild couple days.
Make it quick.
All right, Megan, did you have any questions?
I don't know.
All right, I will entertain a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the competitive negotiated sale of $3,585,000 of general obligation bonds, Series 2025A.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, seconded by Bergstrom. Roll call vote.
Mayor Kelly?
Aye.
Council members Bergstrom,
Aye.
Coughlin,
Aye.
Crakes, Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to considering adopting a resolution accepting the 2024 annual comprehensive financial report and management communication and directing submission to the Office of the State Auditor. Yay! Nobody else gets excited but me. So, Matt.
Once again, thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight we are finally bringing forward our 2024 year-end financial statements to you and the audit report. With me tonight is Tyler C. from Abdo Financial, the manager that oversaw the entire audit. I am happy to announce that we did get an unmodified or clean opinion once again, and we have seen that that finding from last year on the liquor stores has been removed. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tyler.
Well, thank you. Good evening. Thanks for having me tonight. Like Matt said, my name is Tyler C., here to present the 2024 financial statement audit presentation. So the presentation is meant to be kind of a high-level overview of the financial statement audit. So kind of the main details we think that you should be aware of without getting too lost in the details. So I'll get right into it. I'll go into the audit results first of all, which Matt just kind of summarized. I'll then go into the financial results. So I'll start with the general fund, move on to your other governmental funds, go on to enterprise funds from there, and end it with what we like to call key performance indicators. So we are issuing an unmodified opinion on the city's financial statement, so that's a clean audit opinion, so what you would be striving for in a financial statement audit. We also do some testing around Minnesota legal compliance throughout the course of the audit, so testing around state statutes that are relevant to the city. So we also have no instances of non-compliance for this year as well. And then this year we also did some additional testing on federal revenues, so we issued a single audit report. So that's basically just additional compliance and control testing around specifically the ARPA funding that the city received, back during the COVID pandemic. A lot of that money was spent this past year, so we kind of did some additional testing to review those expenditures. We also have no instances of non-compliance noted within the single audit. So all in all, a clean audit for this year. And then Matt did mention this before too, but we just do like to kind of follow up on any issues that happened in prior years. So we did have that liquor store inventory reconciliation finding in this past year. We do that liquor count every year, and we removed that finding this year because no issues came out of that liquor count this year. So now moving into the financial results for 2024, this first graph here, what we're looking at is your general fund balance in comparison to the city's fund balance policy. So the city's fund balance policy is maintain a fund balance of 35% of your following year's budget. So what this graph shows is that your fund balance is at about 44% of your 2025 budget. So you are meeting and exceeding that fund balance policy. Now we're going to look at the general fund budget to actual results for 2024. So on the left two columns, you're going to see your original and your final 2024 budget. So the city did amend your expenditures a bit, about $56,000 into your final 2024 budget. Then you're going to see the actual results as well as the variance with that final budget. So overall, your budget variances for revenues and expenses were pretty comparable with your final budget. Your revenues were a little bit under budget due to not receiving as much grant revenue as in that final budget. And then your expenditures were about $1.3 million under budget mostly because you had less public works expenses than in that final 2024 budget. The general fund also received transfers in from enterprise funds, transfers out to capital project funds, as well as into the public safety aid fund, which is a new fund created this past year. So all in all, after all that activity, your general fund balance decreased about $280,000 this past year. And that bottom line, $11.1 million, that's your year-end general fund balance. Here we're just looking at your general fund revenues by type over the last 3 years from 2022 to 2024. So looking at taxes, license and permits, intergovernmental, charges for services, and then other. So other would be things like investment earnings and transfers in from other funds and things of that nature. And then kind of same format to this slide, but just looking at your general fund expenditures by type over the last 3 years. So looking between general government, public safety, culture and rec, public works, and then other in this case would be things like community development as well as transfers out to other funds. So kind of pretty steady increases in most of these categories over the last 3 years. And you did have more transfers out than a typical year in this past year. So that's why the other is a little higher.
Was that transfers out due to the reclassification or using that public safety?
Yeah, that was the largest portion of the transfer, and then there were some transfers out into different capital project funds. So.
Thank you.
Now just looking at your special revenue funds. So this graph here, we're just looking at your change in fund balance in all your special revenue funds between 2024 and 2023. And then the bottom half of this slide just shows kind of the makeup of what that fund balance is. So kind of the main couple things to point out here is a couple new special revenue funds. So the public safety aid, which we just touched on, and then also the local affordable housing aid as well this past year is new. So kind of two new special revenue funds. And overall, your special revenue funds increased in fund balance by about $780,000. Now we're just looking at your governmental debt service funds. So here what we're just showing is each fund's name, the cash and assets available in each fund at the end of the year, as well as the bonds outstanding as of year end and the maturity of all those various bonds. And then this next slide here just shows the next 10 years debt service obligation broken out between principal and interest.
Does the 2025 include the sales from tonight or the potential?
So this is as of year end 12/31/2024.
Thank you.
Yep. So now here we're looking at the capital project fund. So similar format as that special revenue fund slide. Just again, looking at your fund balance change between 2024 and 2023, and then the bottom half just shows kind of the makeup of that fund balance. So plenty of capital activity in 2024. Some of the main things are, of course, various street projects. The library addition was finished up in 2024, as well as a fire truck was purchased in 2024. So kind of because of all the capital activity, your overall capital projects fund balance did decrease by about $1.4 million this past year. So now we're moving into the enterprise funds. So here what we're looking at on the top half of this slide is your last 4 years operating activity, operating costs, and debt payments. So kind of a cash flow perspective of the last 4 years at the top. And the bottom half shows your cash balance over the last 4 years. And then we also have a minimum target balance, which we have as 6 months of operating costs plus your debt service obligation. This isn't like a set rule or anything, but it's more so kind of a guideline for where you'd want your cash to be. So, you know, your cash balance in your water sewer fund has been meeting and exceeding that target balance. It's of course important to note that, you know, there may be a lot of capital needs in the future for this fund as well. So those are other things to consider as well.
I just wanted to highlight that part of this fund balance, the majority of it is looking for those capital expenditures, and that's what we're trying to pay for, or make sure that we're covering. And so that minimum does not include those capital expenditures.
Correct.
And
that's
so
more of like
why
a minimum operating balance.
Looks a little deceptive that we're overfunded, but that fund is really anticipating future capital projects.
Exactly.
So thank you.
And then stormwater fund, really kind of the same story here, showing that the operating activity over the last 4 years, and then your cash balance in that fund, that minimum operating target balance. And again, you know, you're kind of keeping that same consideration in mind for all these enterprise funds, like the capital needs in the future. Here we're looking at your liquor store fund. So this shows the last 3 years, your sales, cost of sales, operating expenses, all that kind of stuff, debt related to the liquor fund, as well as your cash balance. The thing I like to look at or focus on in the liquor fund is really that gross profit percentage over the years. So 2022 is 27.5 to 28 is 27.1%. So that gross profit has overall stayed pretty steady. And just kind of this next slide here, we have the top half of this slide shows the state averages for liquor funds. So like if you look at that gross profit this is the state averages from 2021 to 2023, you know, your liquor fund is really kind of in line with that state average over the last 3 years. And then here we're just showing that cash balance in the liquor store fund on the bottom half of this slide. So your cash balance is about $1.7 million, so stayed pretty steady this past year in 2024.
Question. I know sometimes we transfer in and out of the liquor fund, and how does that affect our cash balance?
Yep, that is something I forgot to mention. So the transfer outs are also kind of right under the non-operating revenues in this slide. So you did transfer out about $240,000 in 2022, You didn't transfer out any money from the liquor fund in 2023, but then in 2024, you transferred out $460,000. So that's really the main reason why your cash balance did increase, substantially this past year, was because you did transfer out a lot of that money, mostly into your general fund. So.
Thank you.
Yep. And then your streetlight fund here. So again, showing your operating activity over the last 4 years, and then that cash balance. So the cash balance in this fund did take a hit in 2023, and now this last year, positive operating year, and you're kind of building back up to that target balance. And then here's your sports center fund. So again, showing that operating receipts, debt payments, as well as operating costs on top, and then your cash balance over the years in this sports center fund. So this past year, the sports center fund did have that turf replacement project, so there was a lot of capital costs in that sports center fund. Kind of the main reason you're seeing that, that decrease down to about $37,000 in cash as of year end for the sports center fund. Overall cash investment balances by fund type. So this is just your total cash investments on hand as of year end from 2022 to 2024. So that has remained pretty steady. You ended 2024 with about $54 million in cash and investments on hand. Now this is the section of the presentation we call key performance indicators. This is where we look at the city of Savage in comparison to class 2 cities, which is cities of population 20,000 to 100,000. That's a statewide comparison. And then cities in Scott County. The one thing I want to note on these slides is that we don't have that final state data for 2023 yet. So unfortunately, we're kind of looking at Savage. We have up until 2024, of course, but we have to kind of look back a couple years for those complete comparisons of those peer groups. So here we're looking at your tax rate and your taxes per capita. So, kind of projecting out those peer groups, you're probably a little bit below average in those class 2 cities and cities in Scott County for tax rate, while your taxes per capita is probably kind of right in line with those averages. Maybe slightly higher, it's kind of tough to say, but pretty much in line. And this is just your debt per capita on this slide. So again, City of Savage compared to class 2 cities and cities in Scott County. So your debt per capita has been steadily decreasing over the last 5 years. So you're probably below the cities in Scott County average, maybe right about around the class 2 city average. And then here we're looking at your current expenses per capita, so basically your day-to-day operating expenses on the left, and then your capital expenses per capita, which would be like your big capital equipment purchases, your street project, things of that nature, and just how you compare to those same peer groups. So the one thing I'll note for capital expenses per capita is we do typically expect kind of volatility year over year. That number is going to jump up and down depending on when your bigger projects or bigger equipment purchases take place. And that's my last slide, so I'll open it up for any questions or comments related to the audit.
I have one, and mine is, I was doing some reading, and there have been a number of cities who have been flagged for how they've been spending their ARPA funds. And the article I was reading was talking about, what they're going to do if they get flagged and tagged and giving the money back and how horrific that could be. You had mentioned that you had that single audit where you did talk about the ARPA funds. Any concerns that we run a risk that we have incorrectly spent the money or will have that money recalled back?
No, we looked at that in detail for the single audit. I mean, that's really the main testing, is looking at those expenses and making sure they make sense for the ARPA program. I don't have any concerns based on what the city spent the money on.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Megan?
No, I'm good.
All right, I will entertain a motion to adopt a resolution accepting the 2024 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report and management communication, and direct staff to submit the reports to the Office of the State Auditor.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Coughlin, seconded by Johnson. Roll call vote.
Mayor Kelly.
Aye.
Council members Bergstrom,
Aye.
Coughlin,
Aye.
Frakes, Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Yep, thanks for having me. Have a great meeting.
And thank you for all of your work. I know it was a lot, and you had a whole team here that I one day got to say hi to, I think, just about everybody that was here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. All right, moving on to city council reports. Megan, did you have any?
Not right now.
All right.
Oh, me?
Bob, do you have anything?
We had the Scale General, the general meeting was last Friday, and it was a legislative wrap-up. So we actually invited Scott County legislators from both the House and the Senate to come and share their thoughts and experiences over the last session here. And so it was kind of interesting of some of the agreement that they had, that it was different, but it was, they said, almost good, because with the balanced House and Senate, they realized that one group couldn't just push through their agenda unrestricted, and they said it was almost saw more cooperation and compromise this session than previous sessions. And then the next sentence, they said it was really not a good thing. And they kind of complained a little bit about the difficulties, and some of them, it was rather bipartisan to begin with, but they started snipping at each other at the end there. So it was kind of interesting. I was a little disappointed that Savage representatives from the House and Senate were not in attendance. But I think we had a total of 7 or 8 legislators there. So that was, and it was well run by Tony Albright from Paul House, who's our Scale, what do you call that?
Lobbying.
Lobbying firm, and he did a good job trying to keep them in line and focus on specific topics without getting too down a rabbit hole. So it was rather interesting. I kind of wish everybody would have a chance to see that and know what's going on, not just in our county, but a little behind the peak look at what's behind the curtain. So
Yeah. Anything else?
that was it. Thank you.
All right. Matt?
Yeah, I had the I-35 Alliance meeting last week. Really three things to update on. One is, so we have a bylaw in terms of how much money the Alliance actually has. And we were overfunded for the last couple of years. We had reduced dues, but now we're back to full dues for 26 going forward, just in line with our expenses. So it's back to normalization, so we're not overfunded as an Alliance. The two things that were presented was, one was the regional solicitation update review, which is done by the Met Council. I shared that with Council and Brad. I don't pretend to know what that's all about or how it works. There's a lot of nuances to it, it appears. But fundamentally, I think some of the things, long story short, I think one of the big ideas is that is money that the state raises through transportation tax, that the Met Council gets a percentage of to allocate within the region. And there's an application process that you fill out, pretty short overall, but there's just trying to be fair and equitable across the state in terms of how funds are distributed. One thing that's come out of that regional solicitation was about 200 miles of trails and sidewalks were created through that solicitation process. But really it was more of an update that they're changing the process as we go forward, looking for how we can solicit for some of those revenues. It's changing. And so that was what the spirit of that PowerPoint was all about that I shared. Legislative update, I also shared that with our council, kind of in line with what Bob just presented. I think the one takeaway out of that was, again, through taxation of the transit tax, that they're going to be increasing the tax on EVs, close to $500 per year, depending on the vehicle type. which makes sense because they're not collecting it through gas revenue anymore. It's, but the vehicles using the road, they got to pay their fair share as well. So that was one of the updates through that. The other update was the I-35 corridor itself, the bridges throughout Burnsville. Anticipate the Parkway, Burnsville Parkway opening up in November. The off-ramp on 42 will close in September. And the Cliff Road flip on 35 will be this fall as well. So it's still a couple years of pain and suffering through that corridor, and it is pretty horrendous, but nonetheless, progress is being made, and I wouldn't say there's a light at the end of the tunnel yet, but it's moving forward. It's progressing. The other kind of quick update, Green Line Extension, which is the light rail that goes to Eden Prairie. The tunnel's done. So like 95% of the construction is completed. They're still targeted a test train in October of this year.
Oh, wow.
Hopefully.
Okay,
Yeah, that's my report.
thank you. Sorry. I didn't have any meetings. I did do a couple of meetings with residents, just with different questions and stuff, so I did some of those. But written communication, general information, and follow-up. Anything from?
None from staff.
Okay. So again, this is my reminder that tomorrow, June 17th, we have our Peace Pole dedication at Riverbend Park. That is to start sharply at 6:30. I think it's going to be a really fabulous program that's been put together by our Community Equity Commission. And then at 7 o'clock, Treats and Tunes at the same park. So come at 6:30 and see the Peace Pole dedication, and then stay for Treats and Tunes. And then 2 days later, so on Thursday, June 19th, we will have our Juneteenth celebration at the Environmental Learning Center from 6 to 8. And again, everyone's invited to all of those things, and I would love to see all of you there. I will be there. With that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Roll call.
Okay, I've got a motion by Johnson, seconded by Bergstrom. Roll call vote.
Mayor Kelly.
Aye.
Council members Bergstrom,
Aye.
Coughlin,
Aye.
Frakes, Johnson.
Aye.
Motion approved. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.